Okay, good. Yeah. We got hi, good. Just getting ready. Be a second. Get everything together here. Okay. Audience. Yeah, good. Okay. Okay. So good. Good to be here. Okay. We're moving on into the outer three planets now. We're going to Uranus today, and the planets do really function kind of like in groups. So there's the Moon, Mercury, Venus, leading to the Sun. Like Moon, Mercury, Venus, kind of the inner planets that hold together and our inner workings. There's the Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, by which we go out, gain wisdom, and accomplish works. Or not accomplish works. And then, so Saturn, we dealt with last week, was just the structure, what we've accomplished, what we've done. It's the tradition, it's the practical or responsible way to do things. It's the main conservative backbone of life, the cautious way. Or the traditional way, you might say. So Saturn would be, like you grow up, you go to school, you get your job, you got the job, you pay the rent, you get your commitments, you have to hold on to the job because you got a kid or your home or whatever. And it takes a certain amount of effort you have to put out to hold it all together. That's just Saturn, that effort to hold things together, the work to make it work. That's Saturn. The wisdom to understand that it's necessary is Jupiter. The energy to direct towards it or against it is the Mars. So when we start dealing with the outer planets, we start dealing with the planets we can't see. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and other planets that are going to be added in, another 50 years, there'll be another 20 planets added in. But it still doesn't change the 7 main ones that you see, which are the main priorities of how to live in your life. It's the main backbone. It's not just an intellectual exercise making sentences by keywords for each planet and signs, although it can be done. This perspective of inner and outer and energy and what's normal and practical is there in the 7 planets, in the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 planets. These outer planets are things above and beyond normal consciousness, above and beyond the basic structure, above and beyond tradition. And in fact, generally they show as if they're trying to disrupt or disturb the tradition or the security or the limits or the defenses you have in your life. So if Mars is the muscles, Saturn's the bones, Uranus is like the sudden fall or the sudden change that can threaten these energies. Or they can hurt muscles, pull muscles, or break bones. So if you look at traditionally at Uranus, it's considered the planet of sudden change, innovation, even revolution, and shock. So those are some of the traditional ideas of it. They're valid, like those are valid concepts. Those are a sudden change. Well, it's not so much sudden, it's like wherever you get a government or you get a big company that has employees and people are working there and got their jobs there, there's going to be unions who are trying to change things. Now, unions in themselves are kind of Saturnian things, but they're trying to alter the structure and be an alternative or a way of changing the establishment. So the things that change the establishment or challenge it are exciting, they're shocking, they're threatening, but they can bring about real positive change. So sometimes, normally we think of shock and change as negative things. And the worry about losing what we have, or the worry about my land or my property, what I've worked for, being threatened, this causes great anxiety. Well, if it's just threatened by someone else, I take it that's Mars to Mars, that's like war, or a fight or a competition. But if there's something that threatens the whole system, then people gather together, alternative ways are chosen. So I like to think of Uranus as kind of a higher octave of Saturn. Like unions are tied in. Without government, what good are unions? Like without a company or the ruling authority, there's no need for unions. And because of the instability of always changing things, there's a need for some structure too. So there's an inherent antipathy between Uranus and Saturn. However, the challenge in a person's chart or in terms in your life is to get them to work all together. So Uranus is the first of the three main outer that I count: Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Still work with them. The far outer planets. It's interesting to see where they're in their chart, but they're dealing with much bigger cycles and much bigger things. I'm sure they have a presence, and maybe in the psyche of things as they're developing in the complexity of the digital age, it'll become more and more obvious. At this point, there's enough work to do just with the 10 planets, up to Saturn and then the 3 outer planets. There's plenty to work with. There's a lot of time even to try and add in asteroids or Chiron. All these other factors there, they have relevance, they have some meaning, but they're not the primary factors. The primary factors are the planets, are the things you can see and experience, that everyone can see and experience being on the planet, although you have to be up at night to see them and at the right times. But Uranus is this principle of change. Really, it's our need for excitement. If you're sitting in an office and it's just going along, you're tedious, you're doing the regular stuff, it's boring, and suddenly you hear a fire engine going by and stopping right outside, or sirens, or an accident, you're going to go look. It's just something different in the day that makes it a little more exciting. Everyone needs a little sense of excitement, a little sense of, whether it's the happy hour after work, whether it's just something, just breaking away, getting out, doing something different than what your basic tradition is, having a hobby, having an interest, having some eccentric ideas or associations. I mean, kind of the foundation of rock and roll versus regular music. Although I'm not sure I'd put rock and roll exactly to Uranus. It was probably in the 50s and 60s. You know, it's many more categories of music now. And when you get the heavy stuff, you got the Pluto stuff, you got the really trancey stuff, you got the Neptune stuff, and still Uranus has this shock and excitement level. So when we dealt with what makes you different, you got everything together. We got your house. I mean, most of the stuff we do every day, we got to sleep, we got to get up, have something to eat, we go do something, work or something, then we got to eat again, we got to go to the bathroom, whatever, we eat again, and then we get home, we relax, and we try and take some benefit of what we have, enjoy the family, or do homework, or do whatever. You get some extra time, then you sleep. Now, everybody has the same schedule, or it's different timings, with basic needs. And basic patterns develop around how we think, how we choose, what we do. So it differentiates. But basically, we're all, being human, has similar patterns all around. But what makes you special? The clothes you wear, the style that you wear something that gets attention, or that shocks people, that's a little bit different. You listen to music that's different, you watch shocking TV shows or movies, or I don't know, you could go ski, you could go play hockey, or you could, well, anything that's different, that shocks everyone else, boy, that gets attention. Some people may think you're a freak, some people think you're just totally unstable because you're into this crazy thing. Like, how could anyone possibly believe in astrology? Well, it's obvious that science is the practical way that the world runs by. But then it's not so obvious. It's an interesting, exciting thing. It opens up doorways and can inspire and bring in inspiration. So the other planets can bring in an inspiration. They bring in a special quality. But the problem is, we get the excitement, we get the quick idea, and we're ready to go. But usually we're too busy in our life, we're too anchored in things, or we're not disciplined enough to be ready to ground it or to be responsible about it. Which is why many radical groups start and open up, but nobody wants to take commitments, and they break apart arguing because they haven't had the Saturn work to hold it. So my approach is that you can do anything. It doesn't matter how shocking, how exciting it is, you can go for it. But if you're not prepared for it, it's going to tear your life apart. It's going to break away all your foundations and security. So, or at least cause a lot of anxiety as your security gets, or your basic disciplines get threatened. So, if you've got your planets up to Saturn working, and you're working to be prepared, you find an interest that's unique, then you take the time to get good at it. You take the time to work at it. You take time to develop the skills. If it's mountain climbing, you get yourself in shape, you get the tools, you learn to use them. If it's astrology, you take the time to learn the basics, to know what you're talking about, so you can be exciting with it. I mean, astrology is really more Saturnine than Uranian. It's more the structure and natural timing of the order of the universe. And as long as you're being conservative and traditional, it works fairly securely. But these other planets are still there too as part of the system. This is a very valuable factor to know. It's not your escape, it's your excitement. It's what lights you up and what you find, wow, that's interesting. Oh, wow, this is different. It could be meeting someone that's really different and shocking. So you want to meet the guy next door? Do you want to meet someone who's really established, has a job, everything's set up, and you have the money to go do things? But you're living basically in a time-demanded way. So the success of Uranus, really, of integrating Uranus in a lifetime, really depends on how disciplined you're prepared to work for excitement. I mean, it's many people, if you work and make a lot of money, you can buy your trips and go places and you can get your excitement that way. But there's a whole range of excitements, from domestic to mental to emotional to confidence, excitement to your sun, and excitements to Mars, to Jupiter, to Saturn. Each one of these things can be radicalized. So the radicalization principle, the shocking principle, the excitement principle, that's Uranus. And that's the principle that disrupts things. It fights the system. It disrupts things. So it's not, as soon as anything gets structured, there's always, like, as soon as you get a beat in music, you get a regular beat, someone's going to want to add something in between the beat to make it a little more exciting, to add a little more to it. And then they keep adding levels to it. But this principle of excitement, of trying to be, in a way, because it's exciting and it's radical, it has an element of sort of trying to be free of the system, trying to be free. So there's an element of independence with it. Of course, independence, you can see it. We get the freedom and responsibility from the sign each planet is in. But when we start working with the signs of the outer planets, Uranus is in the same sign for 7 years. It's 21 years to make a square. You know, like it's 7-year cycles. It's the planet of fashion change, if you want to call it that.